Hey everyone, I hope you can hear me. I am going to keep talking like this until I get some kind of confirmation that you can hear me. I only say that because the last time I recorded this episode, that was the issue, was that, yeah, I totally recorded it and no, there was no sound. So hopefully this is not the case and you can hear me. Welcome to Colourisma. I'm Shar, and this is where we discover the passion behind the profession. It's the tagline I'm going with now. I just gotta get into it more and memorize it. Anyhow, today's episode, we are going to delve into when passion and life collide. This is 2020. I'm sure we can all relate to the fact that life gets in the way of your passion and what you want to do. I feel like this is kind of an episode that would really help people right now as far as kind of figuring out, is this what I want to do? There are things stopping me from, wanting to do the art that I want to do. Where is that resistance or obstacle coming from? Am I willing to move past it, or am I letting all of these things kind of take control of the whole situation, and there's something bigger going on behind the scenes? So, kind of, that's what we're going to talk about today. I imagine, like I said before, we can all relate to life getting in the way of our art. And that can take a lot of forms. So you have your family and friend obligations, whether you're a parent with kids, if you are older and you are maybe taking care of another loved one, even pets. I mean, I've had pets almost my whole life, and I can say that they are definitely a handful at times, especially puppies. They chew on everything. So another thing is maybe you have a side part-time or full-time job that you are working around your art, and you can't just quit. Maybe you are the only person in your household that is providing income. I really hope that you guys can hear me. I want to do a test, but I don't want it to mess up the recording. Um, so, let's see, where was I? So, yes, if you have a job and you can't just quit, or you don't have someone that would be able to, okay, great. Thank you, Christy. That was my biggest fear. I'm using a new mic, so I just wanted to make sure that it's working okay. But yes, so if you are working and you don't have the ability to have support from loved ones, or you're by yourself, or you're the main kind of person providing income in your family, you may not have the option to quit, and you have to work around that obstacle of working however many hours you're going to work to make ends meet. And then on top of it, you almost have a second, I mean, not almost, you do when you take this as a profession, you take art as a profession, it's a second job. I tell people that all the time, just to kind of remind them how serious I am about my art. Because if you don't refer to it in a serious manner, in the sense of calling it a job and saying I'm going to work, and you mean art, not necessarily your other job, then you can't expect other people to take it as seriously if you yourself don't call it what it is. And as well, you could just kind of run into the fact that you may be uncertain about your path in the art genre. There's so many different paths you can take that, it could be very confusing as to which one you should be on. I struggled with that for the better part of almost 2 decades. So I definitely understand not being 100% certain where you fit into the whole art world. And with that uncertainty makes it difficult to charge forward on that path, because you don't exactly know what to do to charge. Like, what are you charging toward? You don't know. So all of those things can lead to wanting not being unsure. Okay, words are hard. To being unsure about your path, how to get there, and allowing sometimes life to get in the way, because sometimes it's just easier to go to a job, clock in, clock out, and go home and watch Netflix. I mean, that's kind of what a lot of people do. So to then add on top of it a different other career that's uncertain, you're not sure exactly where you fit in. It's difficult to get seen and heard and make a career out of it, mostly because it just takes so much of you within pushing out and constantly showing people, telling people what you're doing. And to do that for a long period of time and then maybe not get results is really frustrating. So I can definitely understand how some people may feel discouraged by that and not really want to push toward that. So we're going to talk about all of that today. And as well, I kind of want to emphasize at this point that what I want to do with this show is not only interview people who are on their way up, who know what they want to do, but are just looking for an audience. I also want to talk to some people who maybe be in that uncertain category, that aren't sure exactly what it is they want to do in the art world, because I feel there are a ton of people in that like position as well. And I feel like talking to those type of people who are feeling those types of way could really help someone else watching those episodes and be like, oh, I feel the same exact way. Oh, I hadn't thought about that like that. I feel like that's a path for me too. And in helping people to find out what genre and specific subject really fits them. And if you, I'm trying to go full circle in this, because not only am I interested in talking with people in that realm, talking to people who are interested, who already know what they want to do, but just are trying to seek an audience. But also, if you have an audience, you know what you want to do, and then it's like, what next? Or do I feel fulfilled with this? So, kind of anyone, I'm interested in all stages of career to chat in this show. So, if you are interested in such a thing, feel free to email me at colourisma@gmail.com and see if we're a match. I reach out to people, but I'm also open to having people reach out to me to want to be on the show. So yeah, I think another thing to think about in all of this, in the sense of having people, or not people, but having life get in your way, right? A big question in that is, do you let these things, obstacles or resistance, get in your way? Or do you make time for the things that you really want? I think there's a big difference between, and this is what everyone says, right? I didn't have time. I didn't have time to do that. I didn't have time to do my art. Inktober is coming up. I didn't have time for Inktober. Didn't have time. Well, there's a big difference between saying that and saying, I didn't make the time. It's kind of my new thing that I'm doing for myself, is that I say now I didn't make the time for that, because it's just honestly more true. When I look back on a day, I could have made time for lots of things, but I prioritized other things ahead of it. And there's nothing wrong with prioritization and making sure that you're getting the things done that need to be done. And sometimes art doesn't fit into that. So, you got to kind of think of how many times does that keep happening? Do you have a period of time at any point in your week that you can make for art? Because if the answer is no, how long is that going to be sustainable for? Or how long is that going to be the case? Sometimes it's for a couple of years. Sometimes it's for a very short amount of time because there's a deadline for something else that you're working on. It's just, I think it's important to be realistic about that kind of thing and figure out, where does your art stand in your life? Because it's easy to not do it. It's definitely easier to not do it, to not feel all the things that come along with trying to carve out a path in the art world. It's definitely easier to just not do those things or not worry about those things. So I just feel like it's important to emphasize, did you really not have the time, or did you not make the time? Both are okay, but I just think it's really important to know which one that is, know what the answer is in that regard. I'm going to check for any other questions or anything. Okay. So next, I'm working on saying something I'm working on. I'm allowing just silence to be okay. So I'm learning. I'm learning how to do all this stuff. So yeah, that's the other thing is, so you've decided that you want to make the time, but you're not making the time. I think it's important as well to ask yourself why. Why is that the case? And I feel like there's two main reasons for that. One being an obstacle and one being resistance. This is a completely arbitrary kind of char defined thing, but I'm going to define an obstacle as something coming from outside of you and affecting you, and affecting your life and what you can get done. And I'm going to define resistance as an internal factor that is preventing you from doing what you want to do. Kind of examples of each. Let's see. Just slips right out. Outside factors, people needing your time. Like I said before, it could be friends, family, children, parents, extended family. There's so many different variables there, right? If you're social at all, basically someone is going to ask or make demands of your time. And depending on where they are in their life and where you are in your life, you have an obligation to help. So that is something that would be an outside influence that is affecting your life. Schoolwork or work. If you're still in school, then of course you have to pay attention to the demands of your schoolwork. And if you are working a job, whether it be part-time or full-time, that takes 8 hours of your day, and school does too, largely, if not more. If you're lucky, your job, you can just leave it at your job, right? You clock out, you're done. Whether it's 8 or 10 hours a day or more, then you leave it there and you go home. Sometimes that's not the case. Same with schoolwork. Pretty much everybody has homework, so that's also extra hours and time in your day that you have to account for that. Again, outside influence affecting you and your life. Traveling or moving. This is maybe not something that you have to deal with all the time, but when you do have to deal with it, it is a extremely large, disruptive part of your like life. Everything is uprooted. Everything is changing. You have no stability. You probably don't have a lot of time to actually, unfortunately, like do any art, because every single second is packing or eating or packing and then driving or however you're traveling. If you're doing a lot of traveling for work for another job, then again, you may be able to fit in some time, but I don't love the mentality of like, draw every single second of every single day, never stop drawing. Sometimes when you're at a crowded, busy area, hopefully not too much right now, but in the past, when you would be in an airport or a busy bus or subway or something, you don't necessarily always want to just take out a sketchbook. I mean, if you thrive in that kind of environment, you absolutely can. Nobody's like stopping you. But if you don't feel like drawing under those circumstances, don't feel bad. Don't feel like you have to draw no matter what whenever you get a second. I like a span of between 2 to 4 hours that I can draw uninterrupted. And if I have to make a call, or if I have to even call someone, like make an appointment, all of that kind of gets in my head and kind of stops me from being able to concentrate on my art until it's done. So if I know, like, I didn't really get any art done before this show. Like, when I know I have to be somewhere at a certain place at a certain time, for me personally, I can't just turn that off and just, oh, I'm going to do this over here and not worry about anything else at all. And then I'll only worry about that thing when it's time to worry about it. I wish I could compartmentalize like that, but I am not able to. So again, that is like a external factor. And I think another big external factor for a huge amount of people that is super, I don't think it's controversial at all, but I'm going to categorize any illness or sickness, mental, physical, or otherwise, as external. It's not your fault. If it is a physical injury, typically those are accidents. You didn't want to break your arm when you fell off the horse, but it happened. So stuff like that is an accident. It's an external factor that happened to you. Hopefully you didn't you tried not to have it happen, but these things happen. It's an external thing. I also can categorize like depression and anything like that as an external factor happening to you. You didn't choose to have depression. You didn't choose to have anxiety or issues like that. So those are things, and maybe this helps you feel better about them, but those are things, if you think about it, happening to you instead of coming from within, because yes, technically they're coming from within, but like, so is cancer, but nobody thinks of like, that was like people think that's a thing that happens to you, is getting cancer. I feel like a lot of things can be categorized that way, and hopefully actually make people feel better about dealing with these illnesses, because it's not your fault. So I feel like putting things into categories in a helpful way, it really can help with your whole situation. Moving on to resistance then. So what does that mean? What are then things that are internal that kind of have an effect on you and what you do, and especially in the art world, like how you are moving forward in those regards? A big one I see a lot, and I experienced myself, is fear. Now, those fears can take different forms. A huge one that I personally can't really relate to, but I know a ton of people who do have this issue. Sorry, I was just checking something on my screen. But yes, something that I think a ton of people have an issue with is the feeling of not being good enough, in whatever kind of lingo you want to use to describe that. My personal one is sort of related, but not quite. For me, that kind of took the form of no one cares. And unfortunately for me, I kind of had this issue where it was constantly reinforced, because I would post and I would get like no reaction. And so then I would post again, no reaction, post again. So it was kind of like a self-fulfilling prophecy of, okay, nobody cares because I keep doing this and I'm not getting the response I'm looking for, or it doesn't seem like anybody is paying attention. So that one for me kind of ended up being a little bit of my fear, is that I just felt like I was doing all this stuff for no reason, because you kind of do stuff you kind of do art anyway for a reason. You do art in order to show other people. Not always. There's like a therapeutic aspect to it, that if you do certain stuff, you may want to keep it personal and private. But if you're doing it for a profession, you want other people to see it. You want other people to be inspired by it. So if it doesn't feel like that's happening, you kind of question everything. You question, is this worth it? Am I doing this right? Does it matter that I'm doing this at all? That's kind of where my little spiral happened for me. If you guys have a particular, and you feel like sharing, have a particular kind of fear or aspect of internal like feelings about doing art, let me know either in the chat or in the comments if you're watching this later. Another thing that might be an inside resistance factor that not a lot of people talk about, but I think it's important to mention, is not really being interested in the subject. You were told to draw buildings because you were told to draw buildings, and that you had to learn buildings, and you had to know how to draw buildings. You don't care about buildings. But you feel like you have to do this in order to make it as an artist. You don't. If you really don't like drawing buildings, you can not draw buildings. There are ways around it. It may be more complicated if the things you want to do, say like a comic includes buildings, or it's a setting that has buildings in it. That might be more complicated than to just write it off entirely, but there are different ways to get around that. You could learn 3D, or you could, there's a lot of things you can do, but that's like a really specific example. The main thing though is to be honest with yourself if you're interested in this subject matter that you're trying to depict in art. Because if you're not, if you don't like it, it's really hard to force yourself day in and day out to continue. And if you kind of think about it, I think Jim Carrey had a little talk about this at one point. If you're going to do something that's sort of outside the norm anyway, in regards to doing artwork, why are you going to do artwork that you don't even like to do? You're already doing an exceptional thing by doing artwork in the first place at all whatsoever. Why even force yourself to do artwork that you're not even interested in? It seems kind of silly, right? Like, it's sort of like saying, I have magical powers, but I'm just going to levitate this rock, and that's it. Not going to do anything else. Like, you have magical powers. You're an artist. Like, do exactly what you want to do. Now, if you want to levitate rocks, that's cool, but like, that's got to be the thing you want to do, right? Like, if you want to, again, draw buildings, and you really feel passionately about that, that is going to come out in your artwork. So I think a big form of resistance is doing subject matter you're not interested in, and relating to that is thinking you should do something whereas you don't really want to, or you don't feel like you need to. Or knowing exactly what you, this is a big one. I feel like a lot of people in like maybe high school, maybe college too, where they have teachers that are resisting your passion and either forcing their passion onto you, or just basically telling you everything that you're interested in is not real art, and whatever. That can also be really discouraging. And that's a little bit, if it's the other thing, if it's like a teacher telling you something, that's a little bit of an external factor, but you can internalize that and think like, I'm not supposed to do anime, or I'm not supposed to draw animals, or I'm not supposed, because those aren't the things that's going to make me an artist. Actually, those things are probably the things that absolutely will make you an artist. Now, you do want to be conscientious of not learning anything else. Like, if you're doing anime, anatomy is still important. It's still really important, even if it's stylized. So it's important to take that into regard as far as like learning. You constantly want to learn how to do things better and improve your craft, but there is something to be said for having external influences kind of bear down on you and make you think like you're not supposed to do something when that really is your passion. I think when something is your passion, though, you don't mind learning. You don't mind learning more about it. For instance, I am studying all about the Achaemenid Empire. And I actually just came across, again, some old reference that I had pulled up a few months ago, I guess. And something I found interesting was the fact that the Empire had such a distinct art style. I'm gonna start sharing it on my like Instagram, but it's amazing to me how unique it looks, and I want to start incorporating that into my art and into the project for my comic. So I think that's just something that you think about when you are passionate about something. You do want to improve. You do want to improve your craft. Um, so yeah, I think those are some ways, getting to a little bit ahead of myself here, of how to overcome that internal resistance. But before we get into that, I think it's important to talk about how both obstacles and resistance, external obstacles and internal resistance, can both show you if you're on the right path. So one way you can tell if you're on the right path is, do you keep giving in to those obstacles or that resistance? Like every time it comes up, you are like almost more than happy to not do art or not do what you think you're supposed to in art. Oh no, I have to clean my house now. I have to. Oh, it's not going to clean itself. But it has to be right now. Like I can't art in this environment. I just can't do it. And you know how we feel when that kind of thing happens. Sometimes it's genuine, sometimes that trash really needs to be taken out, but right now, like absolutely right now, um, yeah, that, and kind of like the internal resistance of like, I don't feel like doing art right now. I'm just gonna watch Netflix, Netflix, or I'm going to, scroll around on Instagram or Twitter, not talking from personal experience at all. And I'm going to do all that for like 4 hours or whatever, instead of doing anything with my art. There are some, again, external factors in that, to some degree. Maybe you have energy requirements, or you have low energy, and you do need that time to recharge. That's fine. There is a certain mental and physical toll that working really diligently and getting really obsessed about your art and getting that tunnel vision and not knowing about space and time, and it's just happening around you and you're not even aware. That's of course a thing, but pay attention to your energy. Are you really needing this many hour break to scroll around on Instagram? Or do you really think that maybe you can limit it to 15 to 30 minutes and then get back to work? That's something I'm kind of dealing with right now. I'm having a little bit of a hard time figuring out, am I really tired and need a break? Or am I just kind of dinking around? Generally, I'm dinking around. Again, we as a naturalist, for me, humans are animals, and if there's one thing that I know about every animal, especially being a horse person, animals are inherently lazy. We don't want to do things. That's why you don't see lions on the Serengeti just running all day. They're sleeping 19 hours of the day for a reason. Like, that they are conserving their energy for when they need it. It's a survival technique. So you are almost always going to default toward not doing the thing because it conserves energy. Don't feel too bad about that, but be aware of it. And then I would say as well, kind of weigh the pros and cons of staying in that kind of sedentary state or moving forward and actually kind of, getting the work done that you need to do. I think it's, again, just do things deliberately. If you're going to relax, like do it on purpose. Don't have like a hair situation going on. But if you're going to relax, do it on purpose. Don't feel bad about it. I mean, I say that, right? Easy to say. But I think an easy way, or easy, a way to feel better about relaxing is to set times to do so. Today, or this hour, or this afternoon, I'm just not going to do anything related to art, and that's just going to be okay. I'll do it 5 other days this week, or 3 other days this week, and that's the amount of time that I'm going to allot for that. That's fine. But if you find that you continually let these obstacles or this resistance get in your way of doing art, like every single time, like it's been weeks or months or years since you've drawn, and you still think, I want to be an artist, I think you really have to like step back and look at your life and look at your priorities and go, do I though? Maybe there's a different kind of art that you're not even experiencing at all. And that is the kind of thing that, you know, you want to do, but you've never, like, say, for instance, instead of doing visual art, right? Or you think you want to be a visual artist. Maybe instead you really actually want to do music, but you've never really experienced music or learned an instrument or played around with it. So you keep thinking, I want to be a visual artist because that's kind of the only thing that you're letting yourself be surrounded by. But really what it is that you want to be a musician. And that's like the thing that really excites you and really is your passion. But because you're kind of avoiding the art, you're not doing anything. So that might make you feel bad, but I would say step back and think, is this really what I want? Or is this what I think I want because that's just what I've been exposed to or what I see? Those are important questions to ask yourself. Definitely reassess your priorities. Always, always. They can always change. That's the other thing. A lot of people get really steadfast and stubborn about their priorities, and because they've wanted to do this thing since high school or for 20 years or for their whole life, they think that that has to be the thing that they do no matter what. No, actually, it doesn't have to be the thing you do no matter what. I feel like it's really important to reassess your priorities often and decide whether or not what you're working on and what you're doing is actually the thing that makes you the happiest. Sometimes it's a mixed bag, right? Like maybe you're working on something that you have to in order to get to the thing that you really want. Case in point, if you are a comic artist, say writing isn't your forte, I'm not talking about myself at all there, but you do have to write a certain extent, or at least think about the things that you want to do in the future in order to progress a story. What you really like is the art. What I really like is animation, but that is super time consuming, and I find it hard to do that right now. So instead, I kind of settle on doing a comic. I'd love to do just animated series instead of the comic, but I think people would kind of lose interest having to wait 2 to 3 months per like 4-panel comic update. So that's kind of where my resistance comes in personally, is that while I do really like comics, I think what my passion is a little bit more is animation. But in order to move forward with a story that people can consume and enjoy, the fastest way for me to do that is every other week I put out a comic update. And kind of like once every month or two, I'm able to do a small animation or an animatic. But it's, you know, I can't get the same thing across, the same story across in that short amount of time. So it's a little bit, that's kind of my own internal resistance happening there. But yeah. I am looking at the next thing. Okay, so the next thing I was thinking about from this point is, can you push through? And this is not to judge people, because pushing through looks different for everyone, right? It might mean that, like, say, if you want to take, look at comics, pushing through might mean every single week do a comic. For other people, it might be once a month do a comic, and both are fine, and you don't need to feel bad about whatever you can put out there in the world. Just stay within the zone that you are capable of doing. Don't overdo it and try to hurt yourself just to get a comic out, and that's not fun. If you can push through, like for instance, I'm just going to use myself as the example. If I can push through and I really want to do animation, but I'm doing this comic kind of instead, and I still do the comic on that and release it on that every other week schedule, that's me pushing through. That's me. I'm not doing exactly what I want, but it's close, and it's progressing the narrative that I want to tell. So that works, right? Like that's me making it work. However, another example of something from my past, I was doing a lot of like animal breed portraits. I was trying to do one of like all 150 plus breeds of dog, and then I was going to do portraits of each one, and then kind of like do a print on demand options for them, like at one of those kind of, I don't know, all of them, all of the things, Redbubble, all the things. And what I found was that I just couldn't. I like drawing animals. I like drawing different breeds of animals, but I couldn't like make myself once a week draw a different breed. Like every other reason any other reason I had to do anything else got in the way. And even though I felt like, oh, this could really be on to some, this could really go somewhere, it wasn't like my true passion. It wasn't my passion to draw one of every different kind of breed and then like do multiple kind of versions of it and put it out on different print on demand stuff like that. It just wasn't my passion. There's nothing wrong with that, but because I had an idea, let's do pets, let's do pet portraits and put it out there on the internet. That was my idea. But could I do it? No. At the end of the day, no, I did not. I didn't do it. So that showed me that, like, while I like those things, they weren't my true passion. And that kind of freed me up and freed my mentality up to think about, okay, then what is my true passion? What am I really excited about? What am I willing to work on no matter what? No matter in what form I have to work on it, I'm going to. And that was for me, and it took a while to get there, but for me, that was the golden truth. I have a gnat problem right now, so excuse the hand gestures. Part of it is like me talking and doing this. Part of it's like waving away gnats in a special kind of way that doesn't look that bad. But yeah. But yes, so I think between those two things, it will really show you, like, okay, so you say you really want to do this thing. You say you're really interested in it, but you never, ever, ever seem to make time for it. You sure you really want to do that? I kind of have a little small pet peeve with people who say they want to be an artist and then never, ever, ever, ever draw. And I'm like, you wish to be an artist, like a genie wish, like that's what you want is like poof, like I know kung fu, but instead I know how to draw. Like, doesn't work like that. I mean, some people are savants and can draw and never drew before or whatever, but that's not the biggest population of artists. Typically, it just takes a lot of work, a lot of time, and a lot of effort. And one thing I find interesting about art, I used to do some art teaching, is that, and this is largely true. I've seen it in lots of different ways, and I think it's important to emphasize because I think it's kind of amazing. You kind of grow to a certain point in art, and then you retain that. You may not think you do, but you do. Case in point, So I would teach people largely in their, middle-aged people how to paint acrylic. And we'd have this like set scene or whatever, and a lot of people weren't artistic, and they still wanted to learn. I tried to choose scenes that I felt like had not simplistic per se, but like geometric shapes that weren't too hard to follow. So mountains or a beach scene where it's a lot of horizontal lines and stuff, and you just choose the colors that you want. And one thing I always said in those things is like, hey, if you drew a person right now, and they're like, I can't draw a person. I said, but I bet you would draw a person the exact same way as the last time you drew a person. And they're like, I mean, I guess. Like, you draw like the triangle nose and the almond shaped eyes. And they're like, yeah, I mean, that's how I draw it. And I was like, so when's the last time you did that? And they'd always say, oh, I don't know, like 20, 30 years ago. And I'd be like, right. So you haven't picked up a pencil to draw in 20 or 30 years, and you'd picked up exactly the exact point of where you left off. How is that not amazing? So no matter what, like when you get to the higher levels, I think there may be some fine motor control that might, you might have to re-examine if you were to take a long break. But the fact is, whatever level you learn up to, you will retain that. And I find that amazing. I just had to make a little side note there because I find that fascinating. I'm not even sure exactly what point I was on. I had to share that little story because I think when you're having those bad drawing days, you're still going to revert to even your worst drawing, which is probably more advanced than what most people do. Now, granted, if you're trying to do a commission or something, you're getting paid to work at a certain level, so maybe reverting back to like the way you drew when you were 10 is not super what you want right now, but I still think it's really cool. So when all of this is said and done, say you found the thing that you do want to keep doing no matter what, how do you plan for success, right? I would say the first step is to plan out the perfect day. Plan out, get yourself like a little, get yourself a little notebook. It's so bright that you can't see the lines, but that's okay. I like these 25-cent notebooks. Nothing fancy. I'm not fancy. And I use them for everything. I have a stack of like 4 of them right there. But yeah, plan your perfect day. Write it out. Don't worry. I mean, you can use a computer too, but I like writing physically in this. I get different colors and stuff, make it fun. And even if it's not in perfect chronological order, just write out, what is your perfect day? Do you get up and work out? Do you make breakfast for yourself? Do you send the kids off to school? Do you feed the pets? Okay, that's all good. And then what? Do you grab a coffee and get started on work? Do you kind of meditate and write in your journal? Do you check emails? Get that out of the way first thing. Just however that looks to you. Imagine you have you have the career you want. What does that day look like to you? Not necessarily in order to have that career, because you may work towards it, whatever. We're playing pretend at the moment. So just kind of think about, you have the career you want, structure your perfect day, however that looks, and then write it down. Make it real to whatever extent you want. A note on your phone, or like physically writing it down. Once you do that, start implementing that day. You could go super fast and do it all at once, or you can go super slow and just take elements of the day that work for you right now until you can get to where you want. Now, there's benefits, pros and cons to both. We'll go with going like poof, like you wrote it down and then the next day you want to start. A pro for that is you're going to find out really fast how realistic that perfect day is for you. Because if you are a night owl and you say, my perfect day, I get up at 7 a.m. and then you went to bed at 3 a.m., probably not going to turn into the perfect day for you. So you may reassess really quickly what it is that you feel actually your perfect day actually looks like, and maybe make it a little more realistic. It's okay for it to not be realistic at first, because as you go on, again, I believe in changing priorities. I think that's fine. So as you go on, your final version of your perfect day is probably going to look pretty different than your initial thought. That's my thought bubble design there. But they probably are going to look very different when time goes by and you look back. And that's okay. This whole thing is a path to figuring out what works best for you. And that's just going to take time. Like I said, doing this really fast is going to show you very, very quickly what that looks like. Now, the bad thing is maybe it isn't your perfect day right away. And if you're the type to get really discouraged by that, then you might be like, well, then this isn't for me, or, oh, never mind. I don't even want to mess with it. I can't do it now. I'm never going to do, and if you start kind of spiraling like that, and you kind of have those mentalities of getting discouraged very quickly, I would actually suggest take it slow. Go slow. Maybe track what it is that you feel is a good wake up time. When you first get up, what is it that you like to do within that first hour? Me, it's sit on my phone and check all my things. It's not great, but it's what I do. Honestly, I like it because I get to wake up at my leisure, and I get to slowly leave the bed, and how you always want to just sit around in bed, and then I do that every day. That's my perfect day, is every day, at least the way it starts. But also be realistic. Can you do that if you have kids or pets or someone who's really needing food at a certain time? Probably not. This is my lifestyle. It's going to be different than someone else's. But you can also kind of plan for things. If you know your cats are going to jump on your face at 7 a.m., maybe set your alarm, make sure you get enough sleep, and then set your alarm for 6 so you can sit there for an hour before they come in. Unless they know you're awake, right? And then then they reset it. Cats. So again, you got to do what works for you. However, like I said, taking it slow, making it so it works for you. Probably more art-related things. This is all the beginning, setting yourself up for having a good day. Christy says the cat thing sounds familiar, and it's yes, it's as if I have been owned by a cat before. But yes, as far as the art side of things goes, and you have the time, and it's say a day off, or a day at least that you aren't working in your day job, if that's what you have, see how the whole working for 8 hours straight thing goes. Some people might have it so that doesn't work. Some people might have it so maybe 3 or 4 hour chunks, and then broken up over the day based on someone else's schedule, like a school schedule or a partner's work schedule. Those are all just things you got to play around with, right? And if you're taking it slow, then you can modulate those things as needed, or try various versions of it. So say in your perfect day plan, you had work 8 hours straight from, great, now I got to do math, 9 to 5, whatever, I was trying to think of an 8 hour period. Anyway, and comes to find out, you forgot that, the kids have to get picked up at school at 3. That is non-negotiable. That has to happen, right? Then that plan is not going to work. Not in that exact scenario anyway. Probably waking up at 9 if you have kids getting home at 3 wasn't realistic to begin with. But depending on how much you're thinking out your perfect day, or how far ahead you're kind of thinking when you do write it, it's okay if it's if you didn't think of every little thing. But that's why, again, implementing this slowly and over time is really going to help you. So do that. The point of implementing it slowly is going to be having you be able to plan and figure out different things as you're going along, right? Like remembering that your kids need to get picked up at 3 is going to make it so you either push your 8-hour window back, or you kind of go, okay, well, how about instead I work from lunchtime till 3, get the kids, get them all set up for the afternoon, get them dinner, and then after dinner they're heading to bed, and then I pick up again and work another 3 or 4 hours. It may work out for you, it may not, but that you're giving yourself and allowing yourself these things to be able to see if it really works out for you. And I think another important thing in all of this and thinking about it is to realize setbacks happen and to give yourself grace. I think that's a word that's kind of like fallen out of style in a lot of ways. It's kind of like almost a religiously charged word. But if you think about just the true meaning of it and giving yourself grace, like give yourself the grace you would bestow onto others in the same situation. If you forgot a deadline, well, hopefully that deadline isn't picking up your kids, but if you forgot something kind of minor, if you missed a day of drawing, like you have to realize like stuff happens, and the important thing isn't to make it a perfect day every day, but instead it's more important to actually move forward and actually make some progress. A little bit of progress is more important than a giant like bushel load. Like that makes sense, bushel load. But anyway, you know what I'm talking about. Exactly. Sam says, just journaled last night about understanding it's okay to change your mind. Exactly. That's what I was saying before about implementing your perfect day and allowing the fact that takes time. And you're allowed to change your mind and say, like, actually, I thought this would be perfect. I thought having coffee or exercising first thing in the morning would be great, but instead I just feel exhausted for the rest of the day. So I'm going to save it for a different time, maybe lunch or at the very end of the day. Or if you're like me, you don't exercise at all. But yeah, it's really important to stay flexible in all this and to kind of realize like you are a work in progress, kind of like our art pieces that we create, right? And there will be a point where the art is completely done, but until that day, you are constantly going to be fiddling with it, right? It's going to have parts where you're going to wipe it away completely. You're going to have parts where you sketch in new details. I'm trying to do a metaphor here. I'm really trying. Hopefully it comes out across okay. But yeah, like it's really important to give yourself the permission to try new things. And when life gets in the way of what it is that you really want to do, let that be a lesson to try to figure out, is that thing I think I really want to do really that thing that I want to do? It may not be. And again, that's okay too. Just because you had dreams like us all of being a paleontologist when you were 5 doesn't mean that that's the same dream you have now. Maybe you just want to be a paleo artist now, compromise. I'm going to have a whole other show about like taking the things that you loved as a child and figuring out what your passion is, because a lot of that stuff translates. We like to think that we grown and are so mature and blah, blah, blah. Well, guess what? I used to draw myself with a bunch of Animal Friend characters in 7th grade. It was like I don't know. I just drew me with all of my animal friends that were all the animals that I liked the most. I wish I still had those drawings. I tried looking for them. I can't find them. But that's what I drew. And now look at me. many years later, way past 7th grade. And what am I doing now? Every single week, I'm drawing me with my animal friend companions going off on adventures. Weird. It's not actually that weird. It happens a lot. A lot of people who love certain properties growing up turn out to be artists who do those things. Animorphs. Fingers crossed anyway. So all of this is to say that it all can take a long time. It can take a long time for your perfect day to kind of settle and for you to figure out what that looks like. It can take a long time to figure out what it is you exactly want to do and what is your profession. But when you do discover what it is that you really want to do, you do have that passion. I'm going to tell you, if it takes a long time, that's okay. Because guess what? That's why you're here. You found your life's purpose and now you're doing it in whatever form that takes. Whether it's working around all these different things that life throws at us, that's why you're here. You found it. You found your life's purpose, and now it's up to you to actually do it, to actually do the thing you're so passionate about. And I feel like if you are able to discover what that is, then almost nothing can get in your way. And I've seen it. I've seen people who have unbelievable things get in their way of being able to have the passion that, or I don't want to say it gets in the way of their passion, but it definitely is an obstacle to their passion that can then turn into resistance, but they overcome it all and make it happen. So I feel for me in this show and what I'm trying to do, having people discover their passion is the first step to being able to move past all these obstacles that life throws at us. Because if you have the thing that you know you really want to do and really want to work on, pretty much short of, some really bad stuff happening, you are going to find a way to do it. Like if you get amnesia and you forget, well, that's a bummer. But short of, that and some other things, that's really the whole point, is that once you know exactly what the path is that you want to be on and what that looks like, then it's really easy to make all these priorities up. So until you have that in your mind of knowing exactly what it is that you want to do, some of this and what I said is going to be hard, because it's hard to implement a perfect day when you don't know why you're implementing it at all. So, yeah. I hope this helps. I don't think I see any questions in the chat. If anybody has any questions, we do have a few minutes left. You gotta type fast, because I know there's a little bit of a delay in the what I'm seeing right here and what comes up on the cast. But hopefully it's not too bad. But yeah, so again, I hope this helps. The whole point of this show, I am trying to get people who can share their passion with others and kind of show what that looks like. Maybe it looks similar to what the passion that you have or that you want, or maybe it's totally different, or maybe just spark something like, hey, I definitely don't like that thing, and then it makes you think of something that's completely opposite. Brains are weird. It's funny, the different things that kind of set off your mind and kind of like show the different things you're really interested in. Sometimes it's pursuing the thing that you definitely know you love, and sometimes it's seeing examples like the whole Edison example of like the 10,000 ways to not make a light bulb, however that phrase goes. You need to go through and unfortunately go through everything that you don't like to be able to figure out what it is that you really do. But again, that's a whole other show that we'll talk about. If you do have any episode ideas, you want any kind of elaboration on any of the points that I have said here, let me know. I do believe that just before I started the show, I saw that one of the guests I had asked to be on the show signed up for next week. So I'm super excited about that. can't wait for you guys to check out that episode as well. So yeah, I didn't see any more questions, so I'm going to go ahead and call this a done episode. If you do want to see more, you can check out Colourisma on Instagram. And we are, unfortunately, Colourisma Art on Facebook because I couldn't grab actual Colourisma out there. But yeah, we're Colourisma Art on Facebook and Colourisma on Instagram as well. There is a Patreon at patreon.com/Colourisma. If you've got any value from this and want to contribute $2 a month, one like very not great coffee at McDonald's, or $2 a month for here. I mean, whatever. If you find any value in this, we also do. I say we as if I have a large group of people on this team so far, but there's also a private sessions, private live streams that we do there, and go ahead and talk about what makes you you and why you like doing the things you do. So with that, I think I will close it out, and I appreciate y'all coming over and checking it out. So have a good day and take care.